Mr. Medja, will, in your opinion, the proposed scheme end the credit crunch in Slovenia? And if so, when?
Thank you. I love this question. It's not a credit crunch that we have in Slovenia, it's a capital crunch that we have in Slovenia.
Yeah, at large, so, yeah, you're right.
We have too much credit in Slovenia and not too little. What we have too little of is the capital. So the question is, will this end the capital crunch? There could be positive signs that this might end the capital crunch, because if, let's say, the banks are cured by this mechanism, we might get more foreign capital attracted to this country, but this is just one of the conditions which is necessary for this. There are other conditions, such as corporate governance, which was mentioned, such as transparency and, telling the truth also to the international community where we really are and what we can do and what we will do. So from my point of view, it will not end the credit crunch. It might end the capital crunch, which then, by replacing credit, will help decrease the credit crunch, if that's what you
Mr. Medja, many international banks, after the financial crisis, decided to radically change the business models. Are you going to, maybe they focused on the so-called core businesses, abandoning the rest of the businesses. Will also your bank do something like that, or the other Slovenian banks will follow this trend of remodeling their businesses?
Well, I'm here today to help comment on the banking sector, right? So I do not have an intention to answer questions regarding NLB.
Your bank.
Yes. So to expand the answer to the banking sector, I think maybe the question is not the right one. I think there are banks who have already changed their business model in the past years and who have already shown and are showing that they can do the business profitably. So what I think must happen is that the remaining banks, and by the way, also a vast majority of the companies in Slovenia, need to change their business models and start doing their business with profit, because the profit is the only sure way that you create your own capital. Your own capital. I think what we've been doing in this economy, in this country for 15 years was a little bit of an addiction on credit. Because if you can only make profit by the fact that you grow and grow and grow and grow with an above normal rate, and for this you need more and more and more credit for working capital, so for the claims towards buyers, for the inventories and so on and so forth, this will stop sooner or later, and we are at the point where it stopped. So we need to change business models that we will be doing things which somebody wants to buy and pay the right price for, so that we can make a profit and create capital in Slovenia for Slovenia. I think this is what must be the message, not only to the banks but also to the economy. May I just have one comment to the previous? I would say, professionals that work very well together sometimes must also constructively disagree, right? So I'm coming back to Dejan. I agree very much that the AMC can help with the liquidity of assets and with time to improve the liquidity of markets that deal with assets, like real estate and all of the other things. So I think for this reason, it could be good to set up an asset management company to focus on something that maybe the banks are not able to focus enough on. I can't, though, disagree that this will help with focusing on the credit demand or that the credit conditions are wrong, because simply the credit which is now sought by 99% of the companies is just replacing loans of other banks. I have yet to see I've now been working here for 18 days and 12 years before in another bank working with companies. The number of companies coming for credit for new investments is currently zero. Everything that everybody wants is to replace money that somebody else is holding and they actually can't get it. So it's either their buyer who isn't paying, it's either their current bank that wants the money back, which is the right of the current bank, because the company has signed a contract that they will return the money at a certain date. So the reality is not that the AMC will, in a short run, help getting the money into the system. There is not going to be any money to go into the system. What is helpful is that the asset markets might become more liquid, and by this, the money might be flowing a little bit more. But what we need to get the money into the system is foreign direct investment and capital.
Exactly. Bravo. I agree with you. But you said that there is not enough capital. Of course, I agree with you. But at least I have a feeling that also banks, you have also some kind of difficulty obtaining, for example, resources or funding on the international financial markets. One reason, in my opinion, is high competition on the international markets, lack of resources, and of course also lack of trust in the country. So where you, the banks on large, in the future will obtain resources for financing, I hope, some major and long-term projects in Slovenia?
Remember my first comment, first thing to do is to restore confidence, and in order to do this, we have to tell the truth.
So this is the way out. You agree with him, Mr. Batten?
Absolutely. I think restoring confidence in the banking system, restoring confidence in the sovereigns, and particularly where the banking system is so big relative to the sovereign, is absolutely key to money flowing back in. We manage a large amount of money from the estates that we deal with, well over 10 billion sterling. We have very rigorous credit criteria. One of the first ones is the credit rating of the sovereign. So you've got to get that back to the point where there's trust, that people will feel comfortable to put money into individual countries.
Yeah, Dan, go on.
Yeah, just to answer a bit to what Janko is saying. Well,
good.
It's a vicious circle, right? Well, what I have a problem understanding myself, if you read the newspaper today, is that, for example, a very good company, Petrol, has to go to debt markets because there are no loans from banks available for that company. Now, you may say this is a bad borrower. Well, I think it's one of the best that we have in this country. He may be over-leveraged, but still it's a very profitable and a good standing company. So why are banks not lending to him? You can't say that he's not having investment projects and so on. The second thing is, if you say we need more capital in the country, yes, but who's going to invest in over-leveraged companies? So I think also the problem is that the banks in the syndicates were not able to reach agreements to deleverage and convert part of the debt into equity. And we know several of these cases. None of the involuntary, or almost none of the involuntary insolvencies worked in this country. That's why we had insolvencies after that. And the single problem is that because there is no capital in the banks, basically the banks cannot even do the debt to equity conversion. So yes, capital crunch, but there is no capital in the banks.
Neither.
So that's the main problem.
Mr. Košak wanted to add something.
Yeah, I would like just to continue. Basically, I mean, definitely there is a lack of capital in the banking sector, but we shouldn't forget that there is a lack of capital also in the corporate sector. I mean, if we observe figures how the leverage in corporate sector has changed, let's say from 2004 till 2008, it was a tremendous increase in the leverage in the corporate sector. So the deleveraging process will have to start also in the corporate sector. So it must be, that also in the corporate sectors has to be done something, not only the banking sector.
Sure.
And I would like to stress that not only the capitalization of banks, but also the funding structure is something which which has not been sustainable. Let's say, if we look at the figures, at the beginning of the crisis, the borrowing from foreign banks in Slovenian banking sector was at the level of 16 billion euros, approximately. Right now, the figure is at about 8 billion euros. So it was a tremendous decrease in this borrowing, and it's still going on. So the leveraging is going on, and we have to be prepared to this and try to find other funding sources and try to figure out how to replace this funding, which was not sustainable in the long run. And this is the second biggest challenge for the banking sector, apart from the capitalization of banks.